Good morning, everybody. I see we have already some attendees joining us. More and more people joining us. Good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again for our World Trade Center Denver briefings. I'm going to share a screen, actually. We're going to start shortly in 1 minute. So let me share a screen very quick. All right. And in the past, I always asked all of you to share where you're joining us from. Today, actually, so I looked at the geography of the people that are joining us for these trade briefings. And not only that we have a very wide geography here in the United States, I also see that we have other people and other organizations and companies joining us from Europe, from Asia. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. So maybe you're going to watch this in as a recording, which is absolutely fine as well. Just make sure that you register so that you can receive that recording. With that, oh, another question that I wanted to ask all of you is, please share in the comments what other topics you would like us to cover in these trade briefings. We are planning for the next 4. I'd love to hear your input. All right, and I think we can get started. All right, hello everybody, and welcome again to the World Trade Center Denver trade briefings. My name is Tanya Arndt, and I'm a director of programs here at World Trade Center Denver. We are thrilled to launch this series to provide timely insights on global trade policy, key trends, and best practices, how to navigate them. For those of you who are new to the World Trade Center Denver, our mission is to help businesses navigate the complexities of international trade through education, connections, and resources. The main goal of these briefings is to inform and offer a variety of perspectives from different trade professionals, industries, and angles, so all of us can make better decisions and stay prepared in this fast-changing trade landscape. These sessions are recorded. I'm going to actually change this one. These sessions are recorded, and the recordings will be sent out shortly after each briefing. So don't worry if we miss if you miss anything, if you have to step out. The format is 30 to 45 minutes of briefing, followed by 5 to 10 minutes Q&A time. We encourage you to register for the next ones. The next one's going to be April 15th. And please share them with your colleagues, and so we can all stay informed and educated on these topics. Couple of housekeeping notes. This session is set up as a webinar. And there are 2 ways to engage. Number 1, use the chat for general comments. Again, we welcome all of your comments. So any insights you want to share, or again, if there are some topics that you would like to share for us to cover, please feel free to put your comments there. And submit your questions in the Q&A section. So that's you should have on the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A. So please submit your questions there. And now it is my pleasure to introduce World Trade Center Denver member and a true expert, Andrew Moraski. Andrew Moraski is an expert in trade compliance and free trade agreements with a strong focus on USMCA. As the founder of Kendrick Trade, he helps businesses qualify goods for preferential treatment under US free trade agreements. His online qualification tools enable organizations to run various sourcing scenarios, navigate complex trade regulations, optimize duty savings, and ensure compliance in evolving policy landscape. And USMCA is as relevant as it could be. So really happy to have you here, Andrew. Please take it away.
Thanks for having me. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Hope everyone's morning's going well. Let's see. I do not see the screen share option.
Always takes a second.
Let's see. Here we go. Here it is. Hidden. Share. All right. How does that look?
Yeah, looks wonderful.
Great. All right. Thank you, World Trade Center Denver. The president of the World Trade Center Denver, Karen Gerwitz, and the director of programs and member engagement, Tanya Ardent, for allowing me to present today. The World Trade Center Denver is a valuable resource for businesses in the Rocky Mountain region. Trainings, networking, and the highly attended World Trade Day on May 22nd. The event is attended by over 700 people, packed with learning opportunities, vendor booths, and great keynote speakers. You can see the impact the Rocky Mountain region has on the global stage. So let's dive in. Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrew Moraski, the founder of Kindred Trade, an online U.S. free trade agreement qualification company. Thank you for joining me today. With the upcoming USMCA review, new tariff policies, and shift in trade regulations, businesses must stay ahead of the potential disruptions and opportunities in North American trade. Today, I'll break down what's happening, what could change, and most importantly, how you can prepare. Here's our agenda for today. We will attempt to get through each of these topics, but there's a lot to get through, so we'll see where we land. This deck and presentation will be available for download after, or you can send me an email and we'll make sure you get it. So USMCA replaced NAFTA in 2020 on July 1st with stricter rules of origin, labor provisions, and enforcement mechanisms. As we approach the 2026 review, businesses need to ensure compliance, take advantage of tariff benefits, and prepare for potential policy shifts. Was it strict enough? Well, I think the fact that each country has a different name for USMCA shows that maybe it's not strict enough. But first, let's review the basics of USMCA qualification. Many people assume that the country of export, the country of origin, and USMCA qualification are the same, but they're different concepts. The country of origin refers to where the product is manufactured, produced, or grown. This designation is essential for tariff classification, import quotas, and trade stats. But the rules for determining country of origin vary by product and country. USMCA qualification is a separate process with stricter requirements. Oops, excuse me. So USMCA qualification is a separate process with stricter requirements. A product that has a country of origin of Canada, Mexico, or the US does not automatically qualify for duty-free treatment under USMCA. To qualify, the goods must comply with product-specific rules of origin, which establish industry-specific requirements. You can find these in General Note 11. Understanding these distinctions is essential for compliance and maximizing trade benefits under USMCA. This is an often misunderstood topic. A product qualifies under the wholly obtained or produced rule when 100% of its material and production occurs within the USMCA region, US, Canada, or Mexico, with no non-USMCA content at any stage. Examples of products that qualify under this rule include minerals extracted in Canada as they originate naturally within a USMCA country. Agricultural products such as wheat grown and harvested in the US also meet this rule because they are entirely sourced and produced domestically. Similarly, fish caught in Mexico's territorial waters qualify as they are obtained directly from within a USMCA member's jurisdiction. A product can only qualify under this rule if every component and production step takes place exclusively within the USMCA region. If any foreign materials are used or any processing occurs outside of North America, you must reference the product-specific rules of origin. USMCA's product-specific rules of origin outlined in Annex 4B determine whether a product qualifies for preferential tariff treatment. These rules ensure that goods receiving duty-free benefits under USMCA have undergone significant production within the region. The two primary methods for meeting these requirements are the tariff shift rule and the regional value content rule. The tariff shift rule applies when a product contains non-USMCA materials, but is transformed within the region in a way that results in a required change in the HS classification. If a product's foreign components shift to a new HS code after processing, it may qualify under USMCA, provided it meets the specific rule listed in Annex 4B. For example, if a cotton fabric is imported under HS 5208 and cut and sewn in Mexico into a t-shirt classified under HS 6109, and the rule for 6109 allows for this tariff shift, the t-shirt will qualify. Not all tariff shifts meet USMCA requirements, so businesses must check the exact rule for their finished product. If a product does not undergo the required tariff shift, it may still qualify under the regional value content rule, which requires a minimum percentage of the product's value to come from USMCA countries. Regional value content can be calculated using either the net cost method based on total production cost excluding profit, or the transaction value method based on the final selling of the good. The required percentage varies by product and category and is outlined in Annex 4B. For instance, automotive parts must contain at least 75% regional value content under net cost method and 85% under the transaction value to qualify. Determining whether a product qualifies under product-specific rules of origin requires businesses to review the specific tariff shift or regional value content threshold listed in Annex 4B. These rules are applied at the HS code level, so companies must verify their finished products classification, check the required transformation or value content percentage, and ensure compliance with USMCA standards to claim the duty-free treatment. There are two ways to calculate regional value content under USMCA: net cost and transaction value method. Each method determines whether a product meets the required percentage of the North American content. The net cost method calculates regional value content as a percentage of the total production cost, excluding profits and certain other expenses. This method is often used for automotive and other complex manufactured goods. The transaction value method calculates regional value content based on the final selling price of the product. This method is generally used when a clear transaction price is available. The required regional value content percentage varies by product and industry, so it's important to refer to your favorite Annex 4B to determine the correct threshold. So here is an example of tariff shift. In this example, we're qualifying a pair of skis. Now, it's not a complete pair of skis because we made it up. But based on the rules of origin for this finished good, the non-originating material needs to be from a different chapter than the finished good. You can see that there are 3 non-originating components in the bill of material, all which meet the tariff shift requirement outlined in this rule. This is an output of our qualification tool. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to show you all how easy qualifying that same bill of material is. So on our website, all you have to do is sign in, create your account. The hard part is, as everybody knows, collecting your data and getting your data clean. But we have the option to manually import your bill of material, or you can upload your file. For this example, we'll do the same downhill ski here. Verifies that you have the right header, proper data. You can make sure you're working in the relevant currency for the country. This is a work in progress, which if you want to dive deeper on what this means, I will gladly do that. So this is in a draft state. At this point, you can edit your components. You can run your sourcing decisions, or you can just continue on. And it'll process the bill of material. So that's a lot easier than having to make sure you're hitting all the rules and everything. So once you get to this step, you're allowed to generate your USMCA certificates. Once the PDFs generate, we'll be able to download our internal qualification documents on exactly, what products are meeting tariff shift and why it qualifies or why it doesn't. I don't want to spend too much time on that, so let's get back in. So under USMCA, most products must meet strict rules of origin to qualify for preferential treatment. However, there are exceptions that allow certain goods to qualify, even if they contain a small percentage of non-USMCA materials. One of the most important exceptions is the de minimis rule, which permits a limited amount of non-originating content without disqualifying the product. It's important to note that this de minimis rule is entirely different from the low-value shipment de minimis threshold, which has been widely discussed in the news. The low-value shipment de minimis refers to the duty-free threshold for individual imports, while the USMCA de minimis rule applies to the composition of a product and its qualification under the agreement. Under USMCA's de minimis rule, non-originating content can make up no more than 10% of the transaction value or total cost of the product, depending on the calculation method used. However, for most automotive goods, the threshold is stricter, allowing only 7% non-originating materials. Beyond de minimis, other exceptions exist for specific industries or products. Some goods have alternative product-specific rules of origin, which allow for different qualification methods. Certain industries, such as textiles and automotive, may have special provisions that allow alternative regional value content calculations, or other exemptions to help products meet the USMCA requirements. Understanding these exceptions is critical, as they provide flexibility in maintaining USMCA compliance while ensuring that businesses can maximize duty-free benefits under the agreement. Common mistakes in USMCA qualification. Mistakes in USMCA qualification can result in denied duty-free claims, penalties, and increased scrutiny from U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. CBP enforces compliance through audits and verification checks, ensuring that companies follow proper procedures when claiming preferential treatment under the agreement. One of the most frequent mistakes is misclassifying goods by using the wrong HS code. Since qualification depends on specific tariff shifts and regional value content thresholds, an incorrect HS code can immediately disqualify a product. Another common issue is lack of documentation. Companies must maintain proper records, including supplier certifications, costed bill of materials, and qualification analysis to prove compliance. CBP audits often focus on companies that cannot provide sufficient documentation. Even if some materials are sourced from North America, failing to meet RVC thresholds can lead to disqualification. This is often due to inaccurate cost data or a misunderstanding of qualification rules. A properly costed bill of material is essential for confirming that materials and production costs meet the required percentages. Additionally, untrained personnel issuing USMCA certificates pose a serious compliance risk. If customer service teams or sales representatives issue certificates without verifying qualification, companies may unintentionally submit false claims, leading to CBP enforcement actions. Importers are legally required to exercise reasonable care when making duty-free claims under USMCA. This means taking proactive steps to verify classification, maintain complete records, and ensure compliance with regional value content rules. CBP expects importers to have a well-documented qualification process, and may hold them responsible for errors, even if they rely on supplier certifications. To avoid these risks, businesses must ensure proper classification, thorough documentation, accurate RVC calculations, and trained personnel issuing USMCA certificates. CBP is closely monitoring compliance, and errors can result in penalties or the loss of preferential treatment under USMCA. To ensure smooth and accurate USMCA qualifications, companies should follow key best practices that help minimize risk and maintain compliance with CBP regulations. First, it's essential to maintain updated certificates of origin for all purchased parts. These documents serve as proof of origin and are required for USMCA qualification. Regularly reviewing and updating them ensures accuracy and prevents compliance issues. Another critical step is to regularly audit suppliers. Supplier-provided origin information is a major factor in USMCA qualification, and errors can lead to disqualification. Conducting periodic reviews helps verify that suppliers meet the necessary requirements. Partnering with finance teams is also crucial. Accurate cost data is required to determine regional value content, and working closely with finance ensures that calculations reflect true material and production costs. Additionally, proper documentation must be maintained for every shipment. CBP requires detailed records to support any preferential duty claim. Having complete and well-organized documentation reduces the risk of penalties or denied claims during audits. Using a structured qualification tool like Kindred Trade helps streamline the process. Automating qualification, documentation, and supplier tracking reduces errors and ensures compliance with USMCA rules. By following these best practices, companies can reduce compliance errors, maximize duty savings, and demonstrate reasonable care in their import process. So, moving on. As part of the America's First trade policy, the U.S. government is reviewing the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement in preparation for the July 2026 Sunset Review. The United States Trade Representative has been directed to begin the public consultation process outlined in 19 U.S.C. 4611B to address the agreement's impact on America's workers, farmers, ranchers, service providers, and businesses. The USTR, in coordination with other federal agencies, will evaluate USMCA's effectiveness and make recommendations on US's participation in the agreement. Additionally, the USTR is required to report its findings, provide an analysis of USMCA's operation, and any proposed changes. This review will play a key role in determining the future of USMCA and whether the U.S. continues, renegotiates, or withdraws from the agreement. The 2026 USMCA Sunset Review is a critical milestone in the agreement's future as the U.S., Canada, and Mexico must decide whether to continue, amend, or terminate the trade deal. This decision will involve economic assessments, stakeholder input, and potential renegotiations between the three nations. One key development leading up to the review is the America First Trade Policy Comprehensive Review, which is due on April 1st, or probably be released on the 2nd. While this review covers a broad range of trade policies, USMCA is included. With the sunset clause approaching in July 2026, this report may set the stage for negotiations or signal a possible trade policy shifts ahead of the review. There's growing speculation that the recently implemented 25% tariffs and broader trade reviews are being used as a negotiating tool to pressure Canada and Mexico into accepting U.S. demands when the Sunset Review takes place. This could also lead to earlier renegotiation discussions rather than waiting until 2026. The best case scenario is that USMCA continues with only minor updates to improve trade facilitation and compliance. The worst case scenario would be a breakdown in negotiations leading to tariff uncertainty and supply chain disruptions, which everybody's familiar with by now. Another major concern is the USMCA exemption from the 25% IEEPA duties, which is only in effect until April 2025. If no new exemption is granted, the 25% tariffs could apply to all Canadian and Mexican goods, regardless of USMCA qualification status. This would create significant cost increases and trade instability. At this stage, the most likely outcome is that USMCA remains intact, but the details of its continuation amendments or potential disputes remains to be seen. With the April 2025 trade report and sunset review on the horizon, companies and policymakers will be closely watching how trade negotiations unfold. The USMCA sunset review will have significant implications for key industries with potential changes to rules of origin, labor standards, and digital trade regulations, shaping the future of North American trade. The automotive industry will be one of the most closely watched sectors. The stricter rules of origin introduced under USMCA require higher North American content for vehicles and parts. Depending on stakeholder feedback and negotiation, these rules could either remain in place or be softened, impacting supply chains and production costs. In manufacturing and textiles, companies' compliance costs could increase if new labor standards or regional content requirements are introduced. This could affect sourcing decisions and production strategies for companies operating across the 3 USMCA countries. The e-commerce and digital trade sector may also see changes. Potential adjustments to cross-border data flow regulations could impact businesses that rely on seamless digital transactions and access to international markets. Any restrictions or new requirements that could create challenges for companies engaged in online retail, cloud services, and digital platforms. As the 2026 review approaches, these industries will be closely monitoring negotiations, and any modifications to the agreement could have long-term effects on supply chain costs and market access. New trade policy shifts. Recent tariff actions are reshaping the trade environment with additional duties imposed on Chinese, Canadian, and Mexican goods, as well as on key industrial materials like steel, aluminum, and copper. These changes raise question about the original intent of USMCA and the broader use of trade enforcement tools like IEEPA, Section 232, and Section 301. The USMCA was designed to strengthen North American trade integration, reduce reliance on non-regional supply chains, and provide stability for businesses operating within the US, Canada, and Mexico. However, new tariff measures, particularly the 25% duty on Canadian and Mexican origin goods starting March 4th, create uncertainty for manufacturers and importers. While USMCA qualified goods are temporarily exempt, this exemption is set to expire in April, leaving businesses uncertain about future costs. At the same time, additional 10% tariffs on Chinese origin goods were implemented in February and March, reinforcing the ongoing pressure under Section 301 tariffs, which are aimed at countering unfair trade practices. Similarly, new 25% tariffs on steel, aluminum, and specified derivatives went into effect on March 12th under Section 232, which targets imports deemed to threaten U.S. national security. Looking ahead, reciprocal tariffs. Reciprocal tariff measures are under review and expected to be announced April 2nd, following the release of the America First Trade Policy Report. Additionally, copper and specified derivatives are under review. With potential tariff announcements expected in November, these developments matter because they complicate supply chain planning, increase compliance costs, and introduce new risks for businesses. While USMCA was intended to create a predictable trade framework, the use of IEEPA, Section 232, and 301 signals a more aggressive trade stance. where even North American partners can face potential trade barriers. With the USMCA sunset review approaching in 2026, these tariff actions may be a negotiation tactic or a shift towards a more protectionist trade strategy. Companies operating in North America will need to stay informed and prepare for potential disruptions in their sourcing and compliance strategies. What this means for businesses. The evolving trade landscape brings rising costs and increased compliance burdens, making proactive risk management essential for businesses navigating these changes. With new tariffs on Chinese, Canadian, and Mexican goods, companies need to reassess sourcing strategies, manufacturing locations, and overall trade exposure. But before making drastic changes, it's important to understand who actually pays the tariffs. Contrary to popular belief, tariffs are not paid by foreign governments. They are paid by the importer at the time of entry. This means businesses absorbing these costs may need to pass them on to consumers, negotiate with suppliers, or explore duty mitigation strategies. There's also the question of what happens to the tariff revenue. In most cases, tariff collections go to the U.S. General Fund, and historically, tariffs have been used to fill budget gaps. Some of the revenue from recent tariffs have been directed towards replenishing emergency funds, including COVID relief programs and industrial subsidies. With trade policy shifting rapidly, patience is better than ever. Patience is better than panic. Rushing to shift supply chains could be costly if policies change again. Instead, companies should focus on supply chain transparency, compliance, and strategic sourcing adjustments, ensuring they remain flexible while avoiding unnecessary penalties or disruptions. In this next section, we will discuss opportunities and how businesses can stay compliant and competitive. While rising tariffs create new challenges, they also present strategic opportunities for businesses that can adapt quickly. USMCA remains a powerful tool for companies seeking tariff-free access to North American markets. Goods that properly qualify for USMCA are currently exempt from the 25% tariffs, but only until April 2nd. This window allows businesses to maximize duty savings while reassessing long-term strategies. The recent waves of tariffs has also reignited discussions around nearshoring. For years, Mexico has emerged as a winner in U.S.'s low-cost sourcing strategy, benefiting from its proximity, lower labor cost, and USMCA advantages. However, with new tariffs on Mexican and Canadian goods, companies must reevaluate whether North America is still the best sourcing region and what must change to make nearshoring truly competitive. At the same time, the U.S. government is offering new incentives to encourage businesses to keep production within North America. These incentives are part of a broader effort to make the U.S. the primary hub for advanced manufacturing and supply chains, reducing reliance on overseas production. This shift also raises bigger questions about raw material sourcing and transportation challenges. Moving production closer to home is only part of the equation. Companies must secure reliable access to inputs, manage logistics, and adapt to evolving infrastructure and policy changes. Now is the time to think beyond USMCA and leverage all U.S. free trade agreements for their intended purpose. As national security concerns grow and alliances like NATO influence global trade, the U.S. is positioning itself to strengthen domestic and regional supply chains. The biggest question is, will shifting production to North America become easier in the future? If government policies continue supporting this trend, businesses that act now may be in the strongest position long term. Risks and how to mitigate them. The shifting trade landscape means businesses must prepare for increased enforcement, evolving regulations, and ongoing supply chain disruptions. With CBP ramping up compliance audits, companies need to ensure that they have a clear, well-organized records to support their duty-free claims under USMCA. The best way to stay ahead is through automation and structured qualification tools, which help maintain accurate documentation and reduce audit risks. At the same time, USMCA labor and environmental provisions are expanding, and companies will need to proactively ensure compliance. Regulatory shifts can happen fast, and previous CBP actions like changes to Type 86 have already demonstrated how quickly this administration can implement enforcement tools. Staying compliant isn't just about avoiding penalties, it's about staying operational in an increasingly complex trade environment. Supply chain disruptions remain a significant risk. The bullwhip effect seen during COVID-19 led to mass shortages, panic buying, and overcorrections. Some businesses increased inventory early, while others waited too long and found themselves scrambling for materials. Today's trade climate mirrors some of that uncertainty. With tariffs, raw material constraints, and geopolitical tensions creating new challenges, companies must develop contingency plans, evaluate alternative sourcing, and remain agile in response to rapid policy shifts. Ultimately, the best risk mitigation strategy is preparedness. Have your documents in order, understand the compliance landscape, and stay ahead of potential disruptions. The businesses that anticipate and adapt will be the strongest moving forward. Key points. The USMCA remains a critical trade agreement, but businesses must ensure they meet qualification rules to take full advantage of duty-free treatment. Simply exporting from Canada or Mexico does not mean a product qualifies. The country of export does not equal the country of origin, does not equal USMCA qualification. Understanding the rules of origin, regional value content, and proper documentation is essential to staying compliant. The 2026 Sunset Review has the potential to bring major changes to USMCA, whether through renegotiation, stricter enforcement, or policy shifts. Companies need to stay informed and be prepared for adjustments in trade regulations. At the same time, new tariffs and trade policies are already driving up costs. With additional duties on Chinese, Canadian, and Mexican goods, businesses must reassess their sourcing strategies, evaluate supply chain risk, and explore duty mitigation options. The companies that proactively adapt will be best positioned for success, ensuring compliance, diversifying supply chain, and staying engaged in trade policy discussions will be critical in navigating this ever-evolving landscape. Those who take action now will be ready for whatever comes next. With trade policies shifting and the 2026 Sunset Review on the horizon, businesses need to take proactive steps to stay ahead. First, audit your USMCA compliance. Let's see, did I already read this one? With trade policies shifting and the 2026 USMCA Sunset Review on the horizon, businesses need to take proactive steps to stay ahead. First, audit your USMCA compliance. Simply exporting from Canada or Mexico does not guarantee duty-free treatment. Review your qualification process, verify supplier certifications, and ensure your goods truly meet the rules of origin. CBP audits are increasing, and maintaining accurate records is critical to avoiding penalties and unexpected duty costs. Next, engage in policy discussions. The USMCA review process will shape the future of North American trade, and businesses that advocate for their industry will have the best chance of influencing outcomes. Stay informed, participate in public consultations, and work with trade associations to ensure your voice is heard. Finally, develop a risk management strategy to prepare for potential trade disruptions. New tariffs, shifting regulations, and supply chain bottlenecks are already impacting cost, and companies that plan ahead will be in the strongest position, whether through supplier diversification, inventory planning, or alternative sourcing strategies. Have a clear risk mitigation plan will help navigate the uncertainty. Taking action now is the best way to ensure long-term success in this trade environment. Here's a few resources that I like. This top one's my favorite. Also love the World Trade Center Denver, ICPA, NCBFAA, USTR, Federal Register is always a good resource. And here's my contact info if anybody wants to, if anybody needs to reach out or wants to schedule a demo, I'd be happy to do so.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrew, for covering this topic. And as I mentioned before, USMCA as relevant as it could be right now. We are hearing quite a lot from our members as well, who now do need to qualify their product for the USMCA. And the one thing that, like I heard before, and I, always repeat to all of our customers, is the documentation. Such an important piece, right? So, and I know it's kind of hard right now when the trade policy changes quite a lot. So I think that's one thing that can stay constant, no matter what things are. Documentation is always helping. We do have a question that I'd like to ask you. One of our participants here put a question. Again, for everybody else, if you have more questions, please use the Q&A function there. All right, so I think this one might be very relevant. So curious to hear your thoughts on that, Andrew. Some products are much more complex than the skis examples. For example, to what level should the components of complex machine be analyzed? For example, an engine that is assembled into pressure washer. Do you analyze if the full engine met the tariff shift into the pressure washer, or the individual components of the engine? I think that's very relevant to a lot of our members as well. So I know we can't go in depth here, but what are your thoughts on this question?
That's a great question. Obviously, every question like this kind of has, exceptions and rules that you have to look into even further. And, taking a look at the bill of materials is the best way that we can help you out. So feel free to email me. We can look at this problem specifically. But essentially, your finished good of the pressure washer, each component within there will be qualified to the country of origin. And then you would do your final. So I believe, if I'm understanding this one right, the engine would be qualified. If the engine would be a component within your pressure washer. So you'd qualify the engine and then qualify the pressure washer with the country of origin.
Thank you. Yeah, that's how it gets extremely complex. So thank you for this question. And again, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
We'd certainly be happy to talk, a little more offline with anybody who wants to explore those more. I know subcomponents are always a question on everybody's mind, and so yes, great question.
And I think in the times like this, I think this is when we do need to use different tools. I think there are different, I think that's another thing that important to share, that there are a lot of tools available, right? So like what Andrew has as his tool to qualify, how can we make it a little bit easier and a little bit more manageable, right? So I invite all of you to explore that. And I did also put a link in the chat. So for anybody who we're launching this free 30-minute consultation, so feel free to book that appointment, and we'll see if it's going to be either me and Andrew or World Trade Center Denver staff. So
I'd like to say one more thing, just kind of diving into our tool on exceptions and exception handling and whatnot. Our tool will, per SKU, pull up any exception questions. I know a lot of the bigger tools available now make you front load those exceptions. So with our tool, you should have even more accurate qualifications.
That's good to know. Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew. With that, thank you so much again for sharing your expertise, for making the presentation. I think it's every single time I hear a presentation from one of our members, I learn a lot. So I wrote quite a few notes here as well. I invite all of you who attended, share your comments here. It's so important for our speakers and our experts to see that the content is valuable to all of you. I also want to invite everybody to our largest event of the year, which is the World Trade Day. It's going to be on May 22nd. We'll send more information in the email, and we invite you all to come also to our next trade briefing that is going to be on April 15th. With that, yeah, I see a lot of comments. Thank you, Andrew. Excellent presentation. Thank you, Andrew. Fantastic. There were some people who used the tool say that it's a really good tool. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, and I will see you. Stay calm and trade on, as I always say. All right. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.